Cancer, ruled by the moon, does not need to summon the dead to feel their presence. This sign is not a channel in the theatrical sense, not a medium weaving words from the beyond in a darkened room lit by flickering candles. Instead, Cancer walks every day accompanied by the voices of the departed, not in sound but in essence. They do not need to speak with the dead to know what they would say. Their hearts are the living archive of those who shaped them, and in their silence, the words of the departed resound like echoes across time. This is the power of Cancer's memory, a memory not confined to intellect, but soaked in emotional truth. They carry in their chest the voices of mothers, grandmothers, wise elders, mentors whose physical form may have faded, but whose wisdom continues to guide like an invisible constellation. For Cancer, the past is not gone. It is layered beneath the present, whispering through feelings, instincts, and reflections. They know, with a bone-deep certainty, what their mother would have said about this situation. They hear the calm admonition of a grandfather who taught them strength through kindness. These are not hallucinations or delusions. They are the sacred echoes of soul impressions that never died. It is this capacity for emotional remembrance that transforms Cancer into a living altar of legacy. When others forget, Cancer remembers. When others sever ties with their roots, Cancer returns again and again to water the seeds planted by those who came before. And in doing so, Cancer transcends time. They are not haunted by the dead, they are empowered by them. This is their quiet sorcery. They do not speak to ghosts. They live with them, honoring their wisdom, interpreting their teachings anew with each challenge, and adjusting their sails by stars that once shone over ancestral seas. This bond with the invisible world gives Cancer a sacred gravity. They may seem soft, nostalgic, even fragile to the careless observer. But beneath that gentle tide lies an ancient force. They are the guardians of emotional lineage, the stewards of unspoken knowledge passed down not by book but by feeling. What others see as sentimentality is, in truth, a profound spiritual intelligence, an intuition that has absorbed not just one life's experience, but many. In the grand astrological wheel, Cancer is the sign of the cradle, the origin, the home. But home is not only a place in the physical realm. It is a continuum of soul connections. Cancer carries within them the scent of old kitchens, the lullabies of long-gone nights, the advice given in weary voices during moments that seemed ordinary but were, in truth, eternal. And in crisis, when others crumble or wander lost, Cancer reaches inward and draws from that reservoir. The voice of a mother no longer here becomes the answer to today's struggle. The hug of a late friend becomes the warmth they offer someone else. They do not just remember, they embody. This deep-rooted connection to the wisdom of the dead is not bound by tradition or religion. It is lunar, intuitive, and instinctual. It flows like tidewater through their being. While the world rushes forward in search of novelty and conquest, Cancer looks back, not to regress, but to retrieve the sacred, to recover the meaning that others have lost in their race for progress. In a world that forgets, Cancer becomes the keeper of sacred memory. In a culture that discards, Cancer preserves the essence. They are the lighthouse shining across ancestral waters, reminding souls adrift that they belong to something older, wiser, deeper. This is not superstition. This is soul work. This is the lunar legacy of those born under the moon's domain. And through this gift, Cancer becomes more than an individual. They become a link in a long chain of wisdom, an emotional bridge between what was and what will be. Their tears are not weakness. They are libations to the dead, offerings to the unseen, a sign of devotion to a lineage that still breathes through them. Their silence is not emptiness. It is a sacred listening to voices others have forgotten how to hear. So no, Cancer may not speak to the dead in words, but they listen, and what they hear shapes them into timeless souls, warriors of memory, bearers of inner truth, protectors of legacy in a world that often forgets its soul. Their quiet magic is not in summoning spirits, but in becoming the living continuation of the love and wisdom that once was, and that still, through them, is. Cancer's deep resonance with the realm of memory and ancestral energy is not a passive trait, but an active, sacred function of their soul's purpose. This sign does not merely inherit emotional truths. It processes, refines, and resurrects them. The Cancerian spirit is alchemical. It takes the pain of past generations and transforms it into nourishment for the future. Within every Cancer native lies an invisible lineage, whispering in the quiet hours, moving through dreams, stirring through intuition. They do not need the language of the dead, because their emotional core is already fluent in the symbols and patterns of what those who came before longed to teach. When a Cancer walks into a room, they bring with them not just their presence, but the legacy of all those they have loved and lost. This is not always visible, can be mistaken for melancholy, moodiness, or reflection. But beneath the surface there is a deeper power, the power of someone who remembers not just for themselves, but for their entire bloodline. They carry the griefs that others have buried. They feel the ache of untold stories, the weight of unfinished dreams, the residue of generational battles won and lost. And yet they do not collapse under the weight. They rise with it. They rise because of it. The moon, their celestial ruler, teaches them the sacred cycles of becoming. That loss is not the end, that endings flow into beginnings, that silence can speak louder than sound. Cancer is ruled not by static memory, but by living emotion. The moon pulls at them as it pulls the tides, inviting them to revisit the past, not to dwell, but to understand, to integrate, and to evolve. Through them, the past gains new breath, and the wisdom of the dead walks forward into the dawn. Cancer becomes the vessel through which forgotten truths are reborn into new form. Even in solitude, Cancer is never alone. The voices within are not hallucinations or illusions. They are echoes of sacred inheritance. The steady voice of a mother who taught love through sacrifice. The firm tone of a grandfather who taught patience by example. The gentle murmurs of ancestors whose names may be forgotten, but whose essence lives on in instinct. These presences do not speak to dominate, but to support. They are the unseen counsel, and Cancer, more than any other sign, knows how to sit among them and listen. There is a holy patience in the Cancerian soul, a knowing that time is not a straight line but a spiral, that what seems to be lost can return in another form, that what was once a wound can become a gift. And so they move through life like quiet prophets, gathering moments, holding fragments, honoring what others discard. When others forget the power of origin, Cancer restores it. When others sever the emotional bond with those who have passed, Cancer builds bridges across realms with the architecture of love. This emotional depth is not weakness, but divine resilience. It is the strength to feel it all and not turn away. It is the courage to be touched by absence and still remain open to presence. It is the grace to honor the dead not through rituals alone, but through the choices made every day, the kindness extended, the love passed forward. Cancer becomes a living shrine, not of grief, but of continuity. They do not look to the past as a prison, but as a source of sacred information that flows into the present and shapes the path forward. Their destiny is not loud. It is steady, not born from conquest, but from devotion. Cancer is the healer who does not always use words, the guardian who protects what cannot be seen, the soul who remembers in a world obsessed with forgetting. Their gift is not clairvoyance in the traditional sense. Their gift is to feel so deeply that the boundaries between the living and the dead blur. And in that blurred space, wisdom flows like a secret river beneath the surface of reality. Cancer teaches that love does not die, that memory is a form of resurrection, that by carrying the stories, the lessons, the emotional truths of those who are no longer here, we keep them alive in the most sacred way. That is the soul magic of this sign, to be both a mourner and a midwife, birthing the future from the echoes of the past. When Cancer walks forward, they do so not alone, but with the invisible hands of countless souls guiding their steps. And through them, the sacred is made flesh once again. There is a profound and often unspoken dimension of Cancer's energy that acts as a transdimensional bridge between the visible and the invisible, not just through memory or sentiment, but through energetic absorption. Cancer does not only remember the dead, they absorb their pain, their longings, their fears, their unfinished prayers. This sign, governed by the fluid and ever-changing moon, becomes a vessel for unresolved emotional matter, not in a destructive way, but in a purifying one. It is the lunar crucible where ancestral sorrow is distilled into present-day wisdom. In this silent process, Cancer performs an act of emotional alchemy that few recognize, and fewer still understand. Their compassion is not surface level. It is not performative. It is the kind that can only be forged in the depths, by a soul who has carried lifetimes of emotional history. Cancer doesn't need to ask for the stories of those who came before them. They already know them without being told. The story lives in the way they flinch at cruelty, in the way they cradle others with unearned tenderness, in the way they instinctively know how to protect that which is fragile and sacred. This intuitive knowledge is not always verbalized, but it is undeniable. It is the knowing that comes from having been emotionally imprinted by generations of love, loss, struggle, and survival. Cancer is ruled not only by the moon's softness but also by its phases. This means they carry within them the archetype of the Great Mother, the inner priestess of cycles, the lunar warrior who rises and recedes in accordance with truths far older than modern logic. When they hurt, they do not retreat out of weakness, but out of the sacred need to regenerate, to return to the inner temple and consult with the invisible ones. Their withdrawal is pilgrimage. Their solitude is not emptiness but sacred dialogue. They do not need ritual to summon the dead. Their mere act of remembering is already a ritual. Every tear shed in genuine grief becomes an invocation. Every memory honored becomes a sacred rite. Every act of empathy becomes a generational offering. Cancer's heart is not merely a container. It is a crucible where the flames of the past are kept alive. In a world obsessed with cutting ties to anything that hurts, Cancer chooses to feel. They choose to connect. They choose to root themselves in what is enduring rather than what is easy. Their emotional loyalty is a shield not just for themselves, but for the spirit of all those who came before and all those yet to come. They become the emotional stronghold of their family, the psychic glue that binds fractured timelines into something whole. And when they speak, whether with words or through action, they often speak not just for themselves, but for those who no longer have a voice. Many will never see the full depth of the Cancerian journey. They will never understand the quiet grief that flows beneath a soft smile, the nights spent weeping for things they cannot name, the deep ache to protect and preserve not just the present, but the unspoken soul contracts of the past. This is not a burden. It is a calling. Cancer has been chosen to carry this depth because they possess the strength to transmute it into something radiant, something that uplifts others, something that becomes a beacon in times of despair. Their sensitivity is not fragility, it is sacred receptivity. It is a portal through which the essence of humanity can be felt, healed, and renewed. In an age where the dead are forgotten, where ancestors are reduced to names on documents or photos in dusty albums, Cancer becomes the living shrine. They don't just remember the stories, they complete them. They don't just feel the weight of legacy, they carry it forward, reshaped by love and renewed purpose. The courage to feel in a world that numbs, the will to protect in a world that discards, the instinct to nurture what is emotionally endangered. These are heroic traits. Cancer's heroism does not march onto battlefields. It kneels at bedside vigils, comforts through stormy nights. It whispers to the forgotten parts of the soul, telling them they are still sacred. This is not mysticism for its own sake. This is the mystical function of memory, of heart, of lineage. Cancer carries within them the energetic blueprint of their tribe, their lineage, and their soul group. They serve not just themselves but the continuity of emotional truth across lifetimes. In every act of love they offer, in every boundary they defend, in every moment they choose softness over bitterness, they resurrect a piece of divine wisdom that the world was about to lose. They are not only guardians of emotion, they are restorers of soul. Cancer is the ocean that does not forget, the tide that returns even when cast away, the moonlight that touches graves and gardens alike with equal reverence. Through their quiet lunar path, they teach the world that the dead are not gone, only transformed, that love is not buried, only waiting to be remembered, and that to walk in tenderness is to walk in eternal strength. The sign of Cancer is often described in terms of emotion, memory, and intuition, but there is a deeper mystery within this archetype that reaches beyond individual psychology and touches the collective soul of humanity. Cancer is not merely a sign that connects to the past. It embodies the ancestral continuum, becoming the living guardian of soul contracts formed across generations. It holds the blueprint not only of familial legacy but of emotional evolution, offering itself as a sacred vessel through which unexpressed stories and unresolved energies find their resolution. This is the hidden labor of Cancer: to feel what others cannot, to carry what others deny, to transmute what others abandon. The emotional intelligence of Cancer is not reactive or sentimental. It is ancient, lunar, and deeply strategic. The moon does not shine with its own light but reflects the sun, just as Cancer often reflects the unspoken needs, the hidden wounds, and the silenced truths of others. In doing so, Cancer acts as a mirror between realms, revealing not just what is visible, but what lies veiled beneath the surface of life. This reflective power is not passive. It is an intuitive precision guided by instinct, inherited wisdom, and a natural ability to read emotional undercurrents like a seasoned navigator steering by stars unseen to the eye. There is a reason why Cancer is symbolized by the crab. Beneath its protective shell lies not only softness but also a profound sacredness that recognizes when to shield and when to bare the heart. This balance between vulnerability and protection is not a contradiction, it is mastery. Cancer does not expose all at once, nor does it retreat without reason. Every emotional move is calculated by an inner compass that knows exactly when a soul is ready to receive truth, comfort, or confrontation. Cancer is not afraid of emotional darkness. It walks straight into it bearing the light of remembrance, determined to retrieve what others fear to face. It is not just about nostalgia. It is about emotional reclamation. Through this fearless embrace of memory, Cancer becomes a guardian of emotional timelines that span more than one lifetime. Their dreams are often layered with archetypes, symbols, and messages that defy logic but carry unmistakable weight. This dream consciousness is not random, it is ancestral communion. The moon opens portals through which guidance flows not in language but in sensation. A scent that reminds them of someone long gone. A feeling that lingers with no clear origin. A sudden knowing that pierces through confusion. These are not coincidences. These are the whispers of those who once lived, choosing Cancer as the channel through which their truths may continue to guide the living. Cancer's relationship to grief is profound. Grief for them is not a wound to be healed and forgotten. It is a sacred terrain to be walked again and again, not as suffering, but as ritual. In grief, Cancer finds the core of what makes us human. Our ability to love so deeply that absence cannot erase presence. They do not resist pain for fear of drowning in it. They let it wash through them like tides upon ancient shores, cleansing, teaching, revealing. They know that grief is proof of love's enduring echo, and in honoring that echo, they transform sorrow into sacred purpose. What many overlook is the immense spiritual stamina required to carry such emotional depth. Cancer may be underestimated because their strength is quiet, but it is a strength born of lunar discipline. To hold the emotions of others, to safeguard the voices of the dead, to remain tender in a world grown callous. This is heroism of the highest order. It requires an emotional armor not built from detachment, but from devotion. Devotion to truth. Devotion to healing. Devotion to the soul's journey across generations. Cancer is not the warrior with a sword, but the sentinel with an open heart, unshaken by storms because they are the storm, made of water and memory, shaped by love and loss. They are the protectors of the sacred hearth, the emotional center from which life is nourished. They guard this flame not only for their families, but for the collective. In times of collapse, when the world forgets what truly matters, it is Cancer who reminds humanity of its soul. Through their fierce empathy, their unshakable loyalty, and their timeless intuition, they resurrect the truths buried under centuries of silence. They teach that emotion is not weakness but memory in motion, that love is not a fleeting feeling but an eternal bond transcending death and distance. And so, when Cancer moves through the world, they move not alone, but with a chorus of voices behind them. Ancestors walk with them. Invisible hands guide them. Forgotten hopes rest in their keeping, waiting to be brought back into the light. Cancer is the healer who does not demand recognition, the emotional mystic who walks unnoticed among the masses, carrying galaxies of wisdom within their chest. They remind us that the heart is not a soft place to hide, but a sacred battlefield where love is defended generation after generation. Through them, the past is not lost. Through them, the pain of the dead finds peace. Through them, the story continues not as repetition but as resurrection. This is the immortal calling of Cancer. To feel for those who could not, to speak for those who are gone, to heal the line that still echoes with longing, and to do it all with the grace of moonlight, silent but unstoppable, gentle but indestructible, ancient but forever reborn. There exists within Cancer a secret chamber untouched by time, a sanctum where ancestral breath lingers and where the pulse of the past beats not behind them but through them. This is not merely metaphor. It is a living force, one that shapes their decisions, their loves, their fears, their hopes. Cancer is not just connected to what came before. They are what came before, carried forward in flesh, emotion, and instinct. Their tears are not theirs alone. They are the condensation of generations weeping through them, sacred waters that cleanse, restore, and initiate. In the cosmic order, Cancer represents origin not as a static point of departure, but as a cosmic womb that constantly births new meaning from old truth. Their emotional intelligence is far more than empathy. It is encoded with sacred memory. When they feel with the soul of their lineage. They inherit not only blood but karma, not only genetics but sacred contracts. And with every intuitive whisper they follow, with every act of care they extend without condition, they fulfill covenants written long before their birth. They are the quiet fulfillment of promises made under stars now dead to the eye but alive in spirit. There is in Cancer a mythic thread that weaves them to the archetype of the priestess, the oracle, the moonwalker. Their strength is lunar, subtle but undeniable, veiled but radiant. The moon's shifting face lives in them, blessing them with an adaptability that is not chaotic but cyclic. Where others seek constancy in the external, Cancer finds it in inner rhythm. They do not impose order through control, but through resonance with emotional truth. Their constancy lies in their unwavering devotion to what is real beneath the noise. The love that endures, the pain that teaches, the silence that speaks. In many ways, Cancer is the keeper of the soul's language, which is not spoken but felt. This language speaks through sensations, flashes of inner knowing, emotional echoes that defy rational explanation. While others dismiss these moments as irrational, Cancer knows them to be sacred transmissions. Messages from the soul field, from guides unseen, from ancestors who did not pass away but passed through. The moon trains them to navigate these waters, to trust tides over timelines, to understand that some truths must be felt before they can ever be spoken. And so they listen deeply with a reverence that others mistake for sensitivity, but which is, in truth, holy discipline. Their homes are not only shelters of brick and stone, they are altars. Each object placed with intention, each photograph, each gesture of hospitality. These are rituals in disguise, sacred acts that say, "You are safe, you are remembered, you are welcome in this space, whether living or dead." In a world obsessed with movement and noise, Cancer creates stillness as sanctuary, not out of weakness but out of devotion to the eternal. They create homes where the invisible becomes felt, where lineage breathes quietly through the walls, where the future is shaped gently by the honoring of the past. Even their pain carries purpose. Cancer does not suffer aimlessly. Their grief is a passageway, their sorrow a sacred descent into the depths of remembrance. They carry old wounds not because they cannot release them, but because the wound must be honored before it can be healed. Through their pain, others find permission to feel. Through their vulnerability, others are granted access to their own locked chambers of emotion. This is the heroic work they perform, often unseen, often unthanked, yet utterly essential. For without Cancer, the soul of humanity would forget how to feel its own history. The water they embody is not merely emotional. It is spiritual memory, astral inheritance. It is the primordial current that remembers the first cry, the first lullaby, the first goodbye. Cancer drinks from this river every day. Their dreams are filled with landscapes they've never seen but somehow know. Their instincts guide them toward people they've never met but immediately recognize. This is soul recognition, the moon's mark upon their being. A reminder that life is circular, that no meeting is random, that no feeling is trivial. In their presence, others begin to remember who they are beneath the mask, beneath the pain, beneath the illusion. In relationships, Cancer becomes the soul harbinger. They do not offer surface affection, they offer immersion. To be loved by Cancer is to be seen not only in your light but in your shadow, not only in your triumphs but in your trembling. They remember your forgotten parts and speak to the child in you long before you speak of it yourself. They are the mirror you didn't know you needed, the shelter you didn't know you craved. And when they leave, they never truly leave, because what they gave you remains etched on the soul. They become part of your emotional DNA. Cancer teaches that tenderness is not frailty. It is resistance against a world that rewards numbness. They teach that memory is not something to be escaped, but something to be mined for wisdom. They teach that silence holds music, that emotion holds truth, that home is a spiritual construct as much as a physical one. In them lives the blueprint of emotional sovereignty, the courage to be loyal to the heart even when the world has betrayed it. They are not here to be understood by the logic of the mind. They are here to awaken the logic of the soul. They are the moon's chosen, and like the moon, they never cease in their orbit. Their light may wax and wane, but it never disappears. It only transforms, guiding tides, birthing dreams, touching the world in soft pulses of eternal memory. And in this light, those who have died are remembered. And through this remembrance, they are never truly gone. Through Cancer, the sacred circle remains unbroken. Beneath the surface of Cancer's soft aura lies a silent force of cosmic guardianship. This sign is not only the cradle of emotion, but also the hidden spine of the zodiac, upholding the emotional architecture of collective humanity. The world often misinterprets Cancer's gentleness as fragility, but in truth, it is the gentleness of the ancient ocean that carved cliffs into kingdoms. There is power in their capacity to feel, an elemental strength in their ability to hold grief, hope, and love all at once without surrendering to despair. They are not swept away by emotion. They are sculptors of it, shaped by it, and ultimately mastering it. Cancer's dominion is not limited to personal memory or familial legacy. They are attuned to the archetypal memory of the species, to the subtle movements within the collective unconscious where ancient wounds remain unspoken and ancestral wisdom remains unclaimed. Without conscious effort, Cancer plugs into this subterranean ocean of emotional knowledge. When they weep without knowing why, when they feel a grief that belongs to no single moment, they are communing with this deeper current. Their body becomes the bridge, their heart the instrument, their intuition the ancient antenna. Through them, forgotten lineages speak again. Through them, ancient truths are not merely preserved, they are reborn. The astrological path of Cancer is one of reclamation, not only of their own story, but of all stories left untold. Their sole mission is to recover emotional territory that others have exiled, to reclaim the sacred right to feel fully, to remember completely, to love relentlessly even in the face of betrayal, abandonment, and loss. Where the world has normalized emotional amnesia, Cancer returns with the sacred medicine of remembrance. They know that healing cannot come without first naming the pain. They understand that one cannot build a future upon foundations that have not been grieved. And so they grieve, and so they remember, and through that act they reawaken entire bloodlines. Their sacred work is subtle, often invisible, but the impact is seismic. Cancer doesn't change the world by overthrowing thrones or proclaiming revolutions. They do it by creating safe spaces where people can be real, by holding others in their rawest moments, by transmitting love in frequencies that defy logic but save lives. They change destinies through the quiet power of staying, through the ferocity of caring when others have turned away. They don't ask for recognition because they don't serve ego. They serve legacy. They serve truth. They serve the unseen roots that uphold the tallest trees. Cancer's body is often a sacred vessel of emotional processing. They carry not only their own weight, but the residues of those around them, absorbing unspoken grief, channeling unexpressed longings, mirroring suppressed fears. This is not an accident, it is sacred design. Their nervous system, their psychic field, their emotional reflexes are attuned to the soul tone of others. They walk into rooms and feel the temperature of trauma, the gravity of what has not been spoken. Their emotional reflex is not a reaction, it is a reading. Through feeling they see. Through pain they translate. Through silence, they listen to what has been buried in generations of uncried tears. There is an ancient warrior within Cancer, cloaked in the robes of the nurturer. This is not a warrior of the battlefield, but of the soul. Their battleground is the interior realm where the past clashes with the present, where grief battles numbness, where hope contends with despair. Their weapon is presence. Their shield is intuition. Their power lies in refusing to turn away from what is broken, instead sitting with it, breathing life into it, allowing the wound to speak until it reveals the shape of its healing. This kind of emotional bravery is rarely celebrated, but it is the foundation upon which all true transformation is built. The lunar essence of Cancer gives them an intuitive relationship with time. They feel time not as a line but as a spiral. They sense echoes of future and past converging in moments of high emotion. In their dreams, in their intuitive flashes, in sudden moments of clarity, they are transported through emotional timelines not bound by clocks. This makes them prophetic in a quiet way. They often know what is coming not because they calculated it, but because they remember it, because the cycles have whispered their truth through sensations, images, and moods that arrive uninvited yet undeniable. The moon teaches them this rhythm, and Cancer lives it without needing to explain it. Their emotional anchoring is a lighthouse for others. People often find themselves unraveling in the presence of Cancer, not because Cancer seeks to expose them, but because they are one of the few who can witness emotional truth without judgment. They see the inner child behind adult masks. They hear the sorrow behind anger. They feel the longing beneath the silence. And rather than trying to fix or analyze, they simply remain present. And in that sacred act, transformation begins. Their loyalty is not conditional. Their love is not performative. It is archetypal, instinctual, encoded in their very being as a mission given to them by the stars. Cancer's soul is not limited to this lifetime. They are often old souls carrying emotional contracts that span multiple incarnations. Their birth into the world is often a return to a soul group, a lineage, a task left incomplete. And so their life is often marked by a sense of déjà vu, of uncanny familiarity, of old wounds that feel strangely intimate. These are not signs of weakness. They are evidence of a soul walking with purpose, gathering what was left behind, mending what was torn, redeeming what was silenced. They are emotional pilgrims on a sacred journey of soul retrieval, not only for themselves but for the collective body of humanity. In them lives the ocean of what it means to be human, not the diluted version offered by culture, but the raw, mythic, undying truth of what it means to love, to lose, to remember, to feel, to carry, to hope, and to begin again. Their existence is a prayer. Their emotions are incantations. Their memory is medicine. Through them, the world learns that the dead are not gone, that the past is not finished, that the soul is not bound by time. Through them, what was broken can be restored. Through them, what was forgotten can rise again, luminous, sacred, and whole. Cancer's destiny is shaped not only by its alignment with memory and emotion, but by its role as a guardian of spiritual continuity across lifetimes, dimensions, and incarnations. What sets Cancer apart is not merely sensitivity or depth, but the profound ability to weave threads of invisible connection into the fabric of human existence. This sign is a spiritual weaver, one who understands through feeling, heals through remembrance, and transcends through devotion. Their soul operates within an ancient lunar current that moves beneath the surface of language, a current that carries not only individual memory but soul memory, ancestral memory, and emotional codes that cannot be written, only lived. Their ruling element, water, is not just symbolic of emotion but of cellular memory, soul essence, and the sacred fluid through which spiritual knowledge is passed without need for spoken word. When Cancer dreams, they do not simply witness symbols of the subconscious. They enter temples beyond time, receiving impressions from souls that may no longer walk the earth but still shape the path of the living. Their dreams are often not their own. They are repositories for the messages of those who no longer have mouths to speak but whose wisdom is still needed. The Cancerian dream realm becomes an astral bridge, not only for personal guidance but for collective messages hidden in images, feelings, and intuitive bursts that linger upon waking and shift the course of their day, their year, their life. There is an emotional gravity within Cancer, a kind of sacred density that draws people, spirits, and unspoken truths toward them. They become soul magnets, attracting not only people who are broken or yearning, but energies that seek rest, healing, or renewal. The Cancerian heart is not simply a receptacle, it is an energetic hearth. When people are near them, they begin to thaw, to remember, to soften into truths they didn't know they were carrying. This sacred gravity is not something Cancer chooses. It is encoded into their soul's vibration. They are lunar healers, placed on Earth to realign the emotional bodies of those who have wandered too far from themselves. Many Cancer natives walk with an unshakable melancholy from early in life. It is not depression in the clinical sense. It is an ancient ache, a soul awareness that life is more fragile, more layered, more sacred than what is immediately visible. They grieve even as children, not only for personal loss, but for forgotten traditions, fractured families, broken promises carried in the blood. This deep ache is their initiation. It sharpens their empathy, expands their inner world, and prepares them for the role of soul keeper. Through this sacred ache, they are taught to listen beyond words, to see beyond masks, and to hold others without needing to fix or change them. Cancer possesses a quiet resilience that is forged not in the fire of egoic conquest, but in the lunar crucible of emotional endurance. They have the capacity to break open and still remain whole. They can be wounded deeply and still love more fiercely. They do not harden as others do. They deepen. This depth is not weakness. It is the power of the tide that, over time, can shape the strongest stone. Cancer changes the world not through noise but through nurture, not through spectacle but through soul recognition. They offer a rare kind of love, the kind that remembers who you were before the world demanded you forget. They are the ones who stay, who return, who hold vigil when others walk away. Their intuition is not abstract. It is embodied. It lives in the gut, in the pulse, in the waves of emotion that crash in seemingly random moments. But these waves are messages. They come when the veil is thin, when the guidance of the unseen needs to be felt rather than heard. Cancer learns not to dismiss these movements as mood swings, but to read them as divine communication. Their body becomes a sacred compass, their emotion a language that predates words. In their most evolved form, they become lunar oracles, guides for others walking through emotional night, offering the kind of direction that does not rely on maps, but on feeling one's way back to the truth. There is also a mystical sense of timing that accompanies Cancer's journey. Their life unfolds in phases, marked by emotional seasons rather than linear progress. The moon's rhythm governs not only their moods but their soul contracts. There are moments in life when they are called to withdraw, to return to the sacred cave, not in weakness, but in preparation for deeper emergence. Their solitude is a chrysalis. Their silence is often filled with sacred information that is gestating within, not yet ready to be shared. They honor divine timing, and this allows them to act with an emotional precision that others often mistake for instinct. But it is not guesswork. It is spiritual attunement. Cancer's sacred purpose extends beyond healing individuals. They are soul architects, builders of energetic homes where others can remember who they are. Whether they are creating literal homes, families, communities, or spiritual spaces, they do so with an awareness of the sacred. They infuse these spaces with memory, meaning, and emotional safety. The environments they create become sanctuaries for growth, for grieving, for becoming. In a world that often values speed and spectacle, Cancer anchors us to what is lasting, what is felt, what is true. Even in moments of invisibility, when their work goes unseen, their influence moves silently through the emotional fields of others, shaping lives from within. They are the secret force behind many awakenings, the emotional soil in which others take root and begin to bloom. They do not need recognition to fulfill their purpose. Their reward is sacred alignment. Their joy comes from knowing they are in service to the soul, that their tears are offerings, that their love has changed the trajectory of lives even if no one speaks it aloud. Cancer is the threshold, the doorway between the living and the dead, the seen and the unseen, the spoken and the unspoken. They are the soul's midwife, guiding lost fragments back into the body, back into the heart, back into the light. Through them, the wisdom of the forgotten returns. Through them, love survives extinction. Through them, the moon speaks in flesh and feeling, and the world, though broken, becomes holy again.